welcome back to this edition of the 2014 Campaign Roundtable Series. I'm politics reporter Robert-Rizzuto, and I'm here with the Democratic candidates looking to represent the 10th Hampden District in the Massachusetts House. And for the next set of questions, we are going to go to our panel of journalists. The first question comes from the Republicans' Ron Chamelis. Ron?
Thank you. The tragedy and tension in Ferguson, Missouri has brought racial relations between a city's police and its citizens, particularly its minorities, back into the headlines. Do you feel the relationship between the police in Springfield and its public is healthy, or must it be improved? And if so, how?
So we're talking about the situation down in Ferguson where there's been much civil unrest, some rioting, clashes after a police officer had shot an unarmed young black man. It's raised a lot of questions about the militarization of police and racial tensions in this country, even in 2014. So, as we're looking at this, I guess, Carlos, we can start with you, kind of localizing this to the Springfield level. Where do you think things are with the Springfield police and the citizens that they protect?
Well, I think that the recent hiring of a new commissioner has also brought opportunity for our city of Springfield, because he's grown up in the city, he's been part of the diverse communities, and he's championed citizenship and working together, working police matters together with the community. I believe that in 1996, I believe, when I was in the mayor's office at the time, there was an issue that was very similar to what's happening in Ferguson today. Not a shooting, but it was just some folks being incarcerated that were from a different community in the Hill-McKnight area. And in the mayor's office, what we did was we worked with the community, open the dialogue, open the doors of discussion, and opportunity for folks to really engage with the police. I don't think crime is an issue of the police. It's an issue of the community, and we have to learn to work together. We can no longer continue to only think that the police is the one that's going to handle crime. We have to open our doors and open our hearts and open our eyes and stop this snitching in the community. And I think those are the things that are going to make it benefit to our relationships with the school, with the police department. However, education does not start in the school, it starts at home. And working with our police is also a parental issue. It's a community issue. So I believe that City of Springfield is far from what's happening in Ferguson today. I think we've grown a lot. The community is becoming more diversified as we speak. We know that, and I think that in the 90s and early 2000s, we have increased our police to look a little bit more diverse. Can we do more? Sure. Should we do more? We must, and I will be an advocate voice on that matter.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And Mr. Edwards, we'll go to you next.
Well, first, my condolences to the family of the victim in Missouri and the victims of gun violence around the country. No, Springfield is not Missouri, and this is not something that I would expect will happen here. I had reservations about the process that brought Commissioner Barbieri to his seat, but once we recognized that we only had 3 choices, he was my #1 choice. I've worked with him in the past, and I was very happy with his appointment. I think there's several things that need to happen, though. When you ask the relationship or how people feel about their community, the police I go to meetings all the time, as a community activist, and people have been clamoring for years for a return to community policing. We had a former commissioner who philosophically was opposed to it. I believe that this new commissioner gets it, and he understands and appreciates the value of having police officers on the streets in the same neighborhood consistently. I think that it's about relationships, and the best time to have a relationship with me or to build one is when I'm calm, when I'm out walking my dog, when I'm out mowing my lawn or raking my leaves. And having the same officer being able to ride by and engage me at that point is the opportunity for him to recognize when he comes up and I'm screaming and hollering, that is not my normal. That is not because I'm drunk or I'm intoxicated or anything else. It's because I've been violated or because something has gone wrong. We have to recognize that a lot of people don't see a problem with our police department, and a lot of that is based on zip code. It's based on what neighborhood you live in. If you live in one of the more affluent neighborhoods and you already have a personal relationship with members of the police department, you're probably not visualizing this being a real issue and real problem. It's the areas where the police are spending more of their time where the distrust and the seeds of that distrust are growing. So I think that it comes back to the importance of having diversity within the management of the police department, but we can't, as members of the minority community, complain continuously about that management structure when our minority officers are not taking the exams to be able to be in those positions. So I think that we need to encourage the minority members of the police department to take those exams to become part of the management structure, because change needs to come from within. And then we also need, as a community, to recognize the lack of respect for humans, for people, for neighbors, and for our community. It extends to our interactions with the police. It extends to our interactions with the teachers and with all people of authority. So we can't always blame the police for doing their job. What I really need is everybody to do their job. So the police, they're supposed to be public safety. They're supposed to collect the evidence, then turn it over to the district attorney for prosecution. I need the judges to do their share, and then I need the support of the sheriff's department and the corrections department, the probation department. What I need is everybody to do their job, and the police officer not supposed to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
Thank you. And Yvette, on the topic of Springfield Police and its relationship with the citizens. What's your take?
Again, as a social worker and somebody who had to go through the process of being a DCF social worker while the Jeremiah case was hitting headlines, and the relationship that destroyed between social workers, the department, and the rest of the community. It is hard work, and I give it to the police that are doing their job. Military, making them to be military, I'm not so sure about that. As a social worker, we have to go in and work with families, get to know the neighborhood, get to know the history of the neighborhood, get to know the history of the families and what they're going through. And it's not all just the parents. It does take a village. It does take everybody in the community. It does take that teacher to reach out to that guardian, because we're no longer in traditional families. We're now having kids in foster care. We're now having kids with grandparents, great-grandparents. We're now having kids with their cousin and aunts and uncles and with foster parents, and that is very, very difficult. And so understanding that, now we're going to have real responsible policing would be great, so that they can also get to know the community, get to know, what people are going through. And first of all, and the biggest piece is the language barrier. We want to make sure that the police, are no longer going into the home where there's a victim of domestic violence like I have been, and then they can't even talk to me and they're talking to my partner. That, we're going to make sure that people and the police are going to be able to engage with the citizen and are going to be fair, and they're going to bring into justice the right people. The same way as social workers, it's going to be very, very hard for me to, at the end of the day, having to remove a child because they're at risk. And so that's what I want, from the police. They got to do their job, but we want to make sure that they're bringing the right people, into justice, and that they're not doing any injustice in the community, and that, the community then is going to feel comfortable in going to the police, because they're going to feel that they understand, that they're going to be able to talk to that person, and that they're not going to be pushed away. Yes, I feel that so far the Springfield police have come a long way, but much more has to be done, and it's going to be in collaborative work with everybody, with the media, with the teachers, with the schools, with DCF workers, with everybody in the community, with our people that have businesses and our residents. And it takes outreach, and it's going to take a lot of education, and I think it can be done, and we're going to continue to move forward, and I'm going to make sure that I'm the person that brings that light into this district.
Very good. Well, thank you everybody very much. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go to Susan Kaplan for our next question on the panel. Susan?
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for being here today. As you all know, you all aim to replace Cheryl Coakley-Rivera, who served for 15 years in the state legislature before stepping down to serve as an assistant clerk in the Hampden County Superior Court Clerk's office. She was the first Hispanic woman to serve in the State House, and so my question to all of you is, what of her tenure would each of you try to emulate? And just as importantly, and more specifically, what would you do differently?
All right, so Susan's question is asking you to reflect on if you're who will become one of your predecessors, Cheryl Coakley-Rivera, and her long time in the legislature. I guess for this question, Yvette, we can start with you.
Great. As a Latina woman, I would have not run if she would have stayed in office. I think she was doing very good and making herself visible in the community. And that's something that I am going to continue to do. I'm going to make sure that, and that's something that I enjoy doing as a DCF social worker. I like knocking on doors. I like hearing from people what is it that they need to improve their quality of life. I like to hear what is it that their concerns are in terms of what we need to improve in the schools. If, the improvement has to be in a particular area, that's what I like to hear. And I'm the one that would be knocking on doors. I would be the one that would be, making myself visible, making sure that people, that I'm, transparent, and that people are feeling comfortable in coming to me and telling me their issues or their concerns or how their ideas as to how we can improve the 10th Hampden District. And as a, Latina woman, I want to make sure that I continue her steps, and I'm going to be a very, very strong advocate, the same way I've been a strong advocate for the last 17 years as a DCF social worker for all of my families. Every single one of my families, everybody can say that I am a very strong advocate for every single one of them, that I'm going to make sure that I reach out to ensure that they get the resources that they need in order to succeed, in order to overcome whatever issue they have, that we bring back many of the resources that we need, improve the ones that we have, and expand on resources regarding domestic violence, regarding childcare, regarding, right now we have over 2,000 children waiting for childcare, for a parent to go back to work. These are like real issues that are affecting us today, and it's affecting my neighborhood, and I want to make sure that this gets addressed. And I'm going to continue as a mother, as a grandmother, as a social worker, and as a resident of the North End. I'm going to fight hard to advocate for everything that my family needs and my community and my district needs, whether you're somebody who are struggling or somebody who's been working for the last 17 years like myself and still struggling to make ends meet. I'm going to advocate for every single family, to make sure that we can, overcome many of the poverty that exists in our neighborhood. And like I said, I've been this advocate for the last 17 years, and I will continue to be an advocate for every single one of my families in the 10th Hampden District.
So you want to continue to facilitate the community conversation. Is there anything specifically you pegged that you would do differently than Ms. Coakley-Rivera did during her tenure? Something you...
I'm not sure if I wanted to do anything differently other than, just continue to be able to work in coalition, bring people together, not just particular groups that have been, gatekeeping the community, but outside of that, I want to make sure that people from, other organizations can benefit, and that, the resources are transparent in the community, that I want to make sure that when they say we're going to fund, this, the child care now, or we're going to, send money to Springfield, I want to see it. I want to see it in the community. I want to see it in my neighborhood, and I'm going to be a strong advocate for that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edwards, topic of Cheryl Coakley-Rivera, something you would try to emulate from her tenure, and perhaps something you do differently?
Well, I personally, first I'd like to say thank you to Cheryl for her many years of service to the community, and she built a wonderful reputation in many parts of the city, and that's probably the part that I would like most to emulate. In terms of being different, I've told some of the young men that I have been mentoring for the last few years that we cannot aspire to be the people of affluence and influence and then come do the same things that we see other people do that we're now complaining about. So I hope to be different. And when to sit here and to try to find things that would be negatively descriptive of our past legislators, there's no particular value to do that. I would hope, and what I'm trying to tell people is that I have a body of service to the community. I wasn't groomed to be a politician, but I was groomed and I was raised to be of service to other people, and I enjoy the experience. That's reflected in the many boards. I'm the president of 3 nonprofits, each with 501c3 status. I get no salary for any of those. I retired as a state employee, and I worked in the MR in service to people with mental disabilities for 21 years. So my whole life has been about service. I'm probably the wealthiest man that you will meet who has no money. But I also am a person who is born, raised, and who loves the city of Springfield. As a state legislator, I realize that I am not going to be the Messiah, that my election will not completely change the demographics or the dynamics of the city of Springfield and what our problems are. But I want to be a part of the conversation. There's no other place in the world that I want to live or would be interested in moving to. So whatever the problems that exist in Springfield, I intend to be part of the solution. I hope that people can recognize that as a state representative from the 10th Hampden District, I don't go to Boston and create a curtain between me and my constituents. This very service to the community that I do now, I would continue to do, and I would still be engaged. So I think that if people can appreciate that the best compliment that I could be given is that I'm a little bit different, that I recognize that I can fail by myself, that if I'm going to be successful as your state representative, it has to be a team effect, and it has to be about the people that I surround myself with, and it has to be the fact that I'm willing to listen to my constituents. I'm willing to tell them the truth. And if there are any positive things that I saw from Cheryl, it was some of the conversations we had about inclusion, about the fact that the division between white, black, and brown. I want to be known as the candidate is not known as the black state representative. I want to be known as the good state representative. I don't make decisions because they're the black decision to make. I don't make decisions because it's the Puerto Rican decision to make or the Latino decision to make or it's the white decision to make. If anything that I would like to see done better, and I'm not going to say necessarily different, but better, is that tearing down some of the walls that divide us. I'm here to represent all the constituents. So the North End, there's a misconception that most of the Latinos in the city live in the North End. They're all over the city of Springfield, and they deserve to be served. But so don't the wealthier white people who live in Lower Forest Park and the middle-class people who live in Maple High Six Corners. And in my engagement as a ward city councilor, one of the things that I made a promise to people was that I would not be the king of my kingdom in Ward 3. Mm-hmm. So I have a reputation that's been built in Indian Orchard, in 16 Acres, in Atwater Place, in Forest Park, East Forest Park. I'm known all over the city of Springfield, and that's the type of representation that I intend to bring to the 10th Hampden District.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. Carlos, on the topic of Cheryl Coakley-Rivera, accolades, something you do differently perhaps?
Well, Cheryl's been known as the people's candidate, and she's been a state representative that represented her people well. As you know, Cheryl's district has been in Forest Park, in South End, in the Maple High Six Corners area, part of it, in the North End. And people love her in all parts of that neighborhood. And that's important as a state representative because you do the work in Boston, but you still have to be connected to the community. She was a listener. And we all know I didn't agree with Cheryl on all issues, but we've learned to listen, to grow, and learn from each other. And I'm happy to say that she's endorsing me. And I think that she's endorsing me in this campaign because it takes you a long time when you hit the State House to understand where an office is and how to get legislation passed, how to collaborate with the other legislators. And I've had that opportunity to work under Steve Bonacani as a legislative aide at the State House of Representatives and also in the mayor's office for many years. Doing different, I think that it's important to make sure that the banks, responsible banking, I will try to encourage our banks to be part of the process of fighting poverty. That's one of the main issues that I think when you look at the issue of poverty, it's impacting our cities and towns and really driving the economic negativities of our cities. So we will be working with our banking industries to look at responsible banking ordinances that can help fight poverty and do some more community development. Government cannot do it all alone. alone. So we're going to continue to work. But we're excited about the things that Cheryl has accomplished. We're going to continue to be a people's candidate. Everybody that knows me that I'm an open person, that I have an open door policy. We've started businesses. We've grown businesses here in the city of Springfield and throughout the state of Massachusetts. I manage the budget. I know what it is to have my kids in college. I know what it is that it costs you a lot of money as a parent, and we need to protect our working families, and I will continue to do that as a state representative if elected.
Gotcha. Thank you. So all three candidates giving high accolades to Cheryl Coakley-Rivera and pledging to continue some of the work that she's laid the groundwork down for already. Thank you, everybody, very much. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be back momentarily.